Hi, this is Mark Arnold with another Fun Ideas podcast. And today I have with me my special guest, Doug Gilford, who has done his own website about Mad Magazine for, let's see, 97, oh 07, 17, almost
25
25
years.
years.
No, 25 years in August.
Wow.
Yeah,
So the inevitable question, I'm sure you've been on other podcasts. I don't know. I think you were on Flippin' once or something like
I was on
that.
flipping.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like, what inspired you to do this?
I was a different person 25 years ago. Let's see. So I would have been, I was trying to figure that out. I was about 32, um, and had the collection. Internet was very new. We were just, I think, commercially available for 2 or 3 years at that point in '97.
That's
I
about
have to,
right. I had my first email address in 95, so I always go by
yeah.
that.
And I just was finally getting a little computerized at my business. We can talk about that. I've been in the floor covering business is what I actually do to make money for years, but just kind of getting into computers at that point. Uh, had a thought that maybe I could share my Mad collection that way through the internet, and taught myself the basics of building web pages. And
Hmm.
in those earliest days, it was very basic. It still looks very basic because it didn't change much after all these years. But um, that was basically it. Just even before all the social and the sharing and Facebook and all that stuff, it just was to put a page out there and share it. And that was it. I just want to see if it was more of a hobby to learn the internet and also continue the hobby of Mad collecting and merge the two.
Mhm. Now, originally, I think it even says it on the site. You were just planning just to put the covers of all the issues, not even
Yes.
the specials or the paperbacks or anything else.
Yep.
Correct? Yeah. And then it kind of you started adding content and going on from there.
Yeah.
And um, what inspired you to do that? Was it just people's encouragement or your own interest, or how did that
Um,
work?
well, I think I have over the years just wanted to continue adding to it in some way, and so you reach one goal and you keep on doing new things. And the very earliest, uh, maybe within the first year or two, DC actually had a problem with me showing all the covers.
Hmm.
Yes, and I got warned by them to cease and desist. Basically, I got a letter from the DC legal department. I should say email. It was a generic email with the boxes were Xed. You do not show a comprehensive list of all the covers.
Hmm.
And I can share that with you at some point. But it was interesting. I did have a lot of people supporting me, with my goal to do all this without getting my hands tied some way legally.
Mhm.
And then once that passed, I'll go back. What I would say the reason for DC being so concerned about this is I think they're trying to figure out the internet too, because
Right.
content, you know, distributed that way was so threatening to so many things, to so many publishers out there.
Yeah.
I'd have to believe. Now they just had to live with it like everybody else, because it's a wild west out there for content just distributed all over the place. But 25 years ago, I was a big threat. And oh man, I'm gonna stop the sales of these books that we plan on selling. And people are gonna stop buying because of you. And that's
Interesting.
so
Yeah,
that
I guess sorry to interrupt. I guess I didn't see the site that far back. I don't remember the legal difficulties or anything like that. So, but that's interesting.
yeah, yeah. I actually, let's see, I'm going to say 4 years ago when I visited Burbank. 3 years ago, 3 years ago. I'll have to tell you this story too. I actually walked into the office of the guy at the time who wrote me the email,
Hmm.
and shook his hands. And we've been he was just doing his job, you
Yeah.
know, and it's he never was really after me, but he had to do his job. And then all these years later, it was kind of interesting to get in touch with him.
Mhm.
But
I think it has a lot to do with the proverbial fair use laws
yes.
and print journalism traditionally. I mean, even in a newspaper, I think in the old days you wouldn't be able to just print out all the mad covers. You would
Hmm.
have to have some article talking about it, saying, this is mad cover one, and this is why it's significant, and
Hmm.
blah 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 blah. You couldn't just put it on there with all the other covers, and you know, even that has kind of changed over the years because I think finally, and it may have taken threats to you for that to happen, unfortunately, that they realize that neither one of us are wanting ownership of Mad Magazine. I mean, it'd
Yeah.
be fun, but in reality, we're just praising and honoring something we actually like. You
Yeah,
know,
that's what it came about for me. In fact, I became a source of information for them, and gosh, they didn't have to pay anybody on the staff to do anything, or hire somebody to do it. I'm doing it for free.
right? Exactly. So.
So they they need more crazy people out there like me to do things because we're willing. Always have been. But it
So,
was never about making any money
mhm.
off of them.
So
So,
when did it kind of change, not the legal ways, but just the site itself,
oh
to
yeah.
where it was just like a personal hobby, just see if I could do this, to where you started getting notice from Mad or individuals who are fans? Was that right away or years later?
It was kind of a slow thing. I think it really exploded with the advent of Facebook. Um, but there were always had a fan base, and I found out years later that I had people with me from day one, checking in to see what I was up to, um, which was kind of surprising. But um, the it's hard to say exactly. I started kind of monitoring my traffic,
Mhm,
which is something you do on your website, or you can these days pretty easily.
mhm.
And saw that I was getting a lot of visits, so I know that that's out there.
Mhm.
But it's you asked earlier about why I went to putting the contents in and all, back covers and all that kind of thing. I just because I was bored just with just doing covers. It needed to expand.
Right. Now, when you add all that stuff, did you get any pushback legally or else otherwise on that?
Not so much there, but
Hmm.
when Facebook came about, I started doing kind of a co put up an article, or refer to somebody like a lot like what I do now, on Facebook. But I was doing it on my site and also on Facebook at the same time. And I actually Sam Viviano was put up to the task by somebody, I don't know, to call me and say, tone it down, you
Hmm.
know. So um, it here again, I think that was probably about 10 years ago, and a lot has changed even in that amount of time.
Yeah.
On what is assumed that can go up there, and your content is everybody's content at a certain point.
Yeah.
It's what it's really moving toward.
That's just interesting, because as you know, I'm writing a mad book myself,
Hmm.
and I will give you praise, and you will get praise in the book, and you will get a copy of the book when it's finally done to your site because it's a valuable resource. I mean, I would have done it anyway. I went through all the issues, but to have it where you already pinpointed this is the first appearance of Frank Jacobs, this is the first
Yep.
appearance of such and such, and so I don't have to go, all right, oh, Don Martin's not in here anymore. When was that last issue? It's like it's right there. So that
Yeah.
really helps.
Yeah.
Um, what I'm doing, which I hope when the book comes out will be a help for you, and you can add the material to the website at that time, is I'm finding a few first appearances of things that you know may or may not have occurred to you, within the context of something. I mean, if you find it yourself, I want it to kind of be a secret, but like I find out the first time that Dave Berg refers to himself as Roger Kaputnik.
Hmm.
And that's an example, and just little things like that where I literally went through every issue chronologically from one,
Mm.
and is like meticulously looking at things and using your website to kind of cross-reference and everything.
Yeah.
Didn't find any errors, so that's a good
Oh, great.
thing.
And, I've always wanted people to tell me if they find something wrong.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think you have asked questions in the past, and a lot of people have,
I have, yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I value that.
yeah,
It's I just consider it at a certain point, it's beyond me now even.
right,
It's just it's like Wikipedia in a way.
right,
It it could be it could be generated by other people besides me, and some of the content has. That's the other thing that's really happened is like I brought on Tim Johnson and his I'm not much of a collector. I mean, I've got pieces here and there, but as far as original art, I don't have much of that. And all the myriad stuff that you can collect, I defer to somebody as crazy as Tim Johnson and his
yeah,
auctions. And I said, hey, I'll help you put that catalog out electronically if you'll let me host it on the website.
yeah.
You know, it'll make the site better, and you know that was the whole point of actually partnering up with somebody who knows that part of it all.
Right. Strangely enough, I guess I'm similar to you. I just like to collect Mad in the printed form. So I have the
Hmm.
magazines, I have the books. I have a few token items here and there. I like buttons, so I have a few of those. But I don't even have a Mad T-shirt. I mean, today I have a Crack T-shirt, but that's
Uh-huh.
because I wrote the Crack book.
Yeah.
Um, and I said, well, that's the closest to a Mad one I have. I have an old Mad shirt that I got like when I was a teenager, but it doesn't fit anymore, so I'm not gonna wear that. But strangely enough, for me, I don't know if it's the same for you. The things they tend to merchandise on Mad, I'm not a big fan of. I've never really been enamored with Alfred E. Newman as a character, and I've never really cared for Spy versus Spy as much as the magazine purports it to be as popular. Like
Hmm.
if they merchandise tons of Don Martin stuff, like and I actually have some of this stuff. There was like a Captain Klutz T-shirt that came out when I was a teenager. I still have that somewhere. Yeah, if they put out tons of Captain Klutz merchandise back in the day, I would have been snapping it all up because that's the
Yeah.
type of stuff I like. But Alfred in Spy versus Spy doesn't really do it for me, nor do much of the more current, kind of ongoing features. Like if they did, well, a lot of these are gone now, so they're not really that current, but they, of course it's in reprints, but if they did Planet Tad beyond the two books that they put out, I probably would have said, all right, I'm done with this.
Right.
Things like that, because that stuff totally disinterested me. So it's
Hmm.
kind of interesting that we're on the same wavelength as, like, the books and the printed publication are really where
Yeah.
it's at.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. It's always, if any, I mean, of course it's an obsession, but I'm obsessed with that print part of it. And I really want to try to find wherever the printed word and the duplications of the word,
Mhm.
whenever I can find them. That's been what I've been after.
Yeah,
Um, you know, that's pretty much it. The As far as my like or dislike of certain mad things, and Alfred and the spies and all that, I really started appreciating the spies more when I got into actually having to, how do I differentiate this spy versus spy from that spy versus spy from one article to the next? And I figured, well, I need to describe what's going on in as few words as possible, and then carry that through to the duplicate, to the reprints.
that's true because they didn't give titles to these things. Yeah.
Yeah, so it made me read it and see it in a whole different light, just having to go through it, that granularity.
Mhm.
It's just crazy. But no, and I like Prohetus's really heavy line there. I like the art style,
Yeah.
and so and just the fact that it is wordless, it's kind of universal that way.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
As far as Alfred goes, um, it's that is an obsession, I guess. Not to collect it, but I sure, you know, it's in my brain. Since I can never remember collecting and seeing it. It just
Yeah.
it fascinates me that people out there who don't recognize the face. And I said, really? And I guess is it a generational thing? I don't
I mean, well, certainly you've been around longer than the magazine itself, as different articles and books talk about. But it's um, going back to the spies. I will say something is like I do like Proheus's Spy versus Spy better than any later incarnation. I
know.
understand he had to retire and then he passed away, and but strangely enough, I tend to like the fourth and fifth paperback collections, which have longer stories than the
Mm.
single page one because they're
Uh-huh.
more involved. And but even and that's kind of like, where do you draw the line on that stuff? But apparently you kind of go where I go. It's like as long as it says Mad and it's still a book, it'll be in there. So, because
Yeah.
some people might draw the line. It's like, well, all those Mad paperbacks weren't really Mad
Well, yeah,
material and
I've
stuff
had
like
I've
that.
had the Jaffe Willie Weirdy stuff,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of thing. I said, wow, you're really missing a lot of books there, Doug. I said, no, not really.
yeah,
They're not Mad books.
yeah. And
Uh,
yeah, you do have to draw the line because I've
my
seen,
my
like,
my
I even
friend
have them
Dodd
on my
for
shelf.
sure.
There's like a couple Frank Jacobs books I have that take material that actually did appear in Mad at one point,
Mm,
but they're not Mad books,
yeah,
and there's no cartoon in it. It's just, Frank took the material and repurposed it for his own use.
right.
And, I could contact you and say, hey, you should put this in here, but I kind of know where you draw the line on things.
Yeah,
The
I
only
just
one I kind of, fudged it a little bit is, when Quentin Tarantino put that book out recently, and I go, well, they're reprinting that little Mad insert in its
yeah,
entirety, so it's kind
yeah.
of quasi Mad, really.
And I think I did tweak my site as in response to that. I put
Yeah,
a little line in there based on your input there, but I wasn't going to run out and buy the
yeah.
thing.
Well, I did. Well, here's the strange thing is when the 4K edition, if you have it up there, you can show it. Yeah. When that edition came out with the 7-inch single and everything, for some reason, it just eluded me. And then I found out Tom Richmond had extra ones of the little Mad that came inside. And he said, no, I gave them all away or sold them or whatever. And it's like, and so, yeah, I didn't have one of these. Yeah. And I found out about it on your site of all places, of course. And it just kind of like, not only is it a little Mad, it's a little Mad with new material, and that
Exactly.
double frustrated me. If it was a
Exactly.
reprint of,
So, and here's the crazy thing. This is a Blu-ray. I don't have a Blu-ray player.
oh, I
You
have a
know?
Blu-ray player. I don't have a 4K player, so it's like, so
Yeah. So it was a waste. It was an expensive waste to get that. But there's the obsession to be complete. And
right.
do what I can to have that record of it. So,
Right. So when that Quentin Tarantino novelization came out in hardback and reprinted that little Mad insert, I said, well, I, like other people, missed out on that thing. I better get this book. And
yeah.
then strangely enough, as soon as I got that, I found what you just showed, the Quentin Tarantino, the 4K one that flipped out with it in there, relatively inexpensive because it was going over $250. And I think I got
Mhm.
one for $75, which
Yeah.
is kind of more in the price range of what it originally came out, I think. So,
Yeah. I
you know,
think it was in the 60s
yeah,
on sale at Amazon or whatever where I got mine.
yeah. So I said, okay, I'll get it now. So I don't mind having both, but I mean that's the one reason why I mentioned that to you, because I'm sure there's other Mad fans who are as obsessive as us, and it's like, I missed that thing. How do I
Yeah.
get it?
Yeah.
And interestingly, in today's editions of Mad that do reprints, you would think enough times passed, let's reprint that in the Mad too. So for people who missed out on that special edition, but
Yeah.
whatever.
It remains to be seen. Maybe they will.
Um, so currently on Mad, obviously we're talking about being in reprints. I've interviewed many of the Mad guys, most recently Dick DeBartolo, and I've interviewed Kit Lively, and Tom Richmond, and who else? I'm forgetting people. Peter Bagg, a few others, and they all have kind of different opinions about where Mad is going, and because there's no answer. And I don't know if you have any keener insight by doing a website. Probably not, but so what do you think? Where do you think Mad's going after its 70th year here and being in
Well,
reprints for 2 years?
I tend to talk to Susie on a limited basis. Usually it's related to seeing a preview of the new issue, if she'll share it, or whatever else. And she doesn't really share an awful lot about what's coming up. But as far as where it's going, I really would be guessing like everybody else. I have my own hopes,
Yeah.
that I think it's probably a long shot, even though it would be nice to see it on the newsstands again at your local grocery store.
Yeah.
But have you seen the newsstands at the grocery store lately? It's like there's not much of any new content with magazines. It's like all these. It's like what Mad's doing with the stocking stuffer and everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bigger, the big books, or whatever we're calling them these days. That they should be doing new ones of those, but
Right.
how can you have a new magazine coming out that's all reprint material and those?
Yeah.
Also putting a lot of energies into those things. But I think that we're probably going to see Mad continue on like this for quite some time, I think, because there's a whole audience out there that has never read old Mad issues, and maybe they're just discovering it.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what they ultimately wanted to do, was reach a base they never did before, and they know that the hardcore subscriber base is going to continue buying them for the new cover, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not happy about it, but we'll continue buying it. And maybe if they may decide, if they lose some of that demographic, the older reader, well, then the newer reader will step in, perhaps. Who knows? I don't know what's going on in their heads.
For me, I'm just mad that if you're going to go all reprint, or virtually all reprint, because they're not completely reprint, but they're like 98%, I would have kept on Tom Richmond and Desmond Devlin to do a new movie parody, each issue, rather than having Johnny Sampson do a new fold-in. I like Johnny Sampson, but you could reprint a Jaffe one. He's has 50 years of reprints. You could just pop one in there each issue, and I'd rather see a new movie parody, or TV show parody or something like that. But I'm not running the show. But if Susie's watching, that's what I'd rather see.
No, I think that's where Mad really picked up speed and popularity, was with their TV and movie parodies.
Yeah. And I would like them also, and I've said this elsewhere too, is like parody like they used to. Like when I started reading Mad, which I'm going to ask you too, is when you started, but when I started reading Mad, it was in 1974. They're parodying things like Death Wish and Godfather Part 2, things that I would never see when I was 7 years old. But I thought about them when I got older, and I said, oh yeah, I read the Mad parody. Now let's see what the original thing was about. And now it seems like there's a new Marvel universe movie out. Let's parody that. And it's like, it's too many trips to that superhero well.
I agree.
Granted, there's a lot of superhero movies, but I mean, there's a lot of non-superhero movies that Mad missed, even in its final all new days, that I thought.
I couldn't agree more. There need to be more, 5 easy pages.
Yeah.
And my first one issue I remember was the Godfather issue. I think a babysitter brought it over. And how's a 7-year-old kid gonna know what a Godfather is? I'm turning to the Don Martin, and it take years to come back and start reading about an adult film,
Right.
But it was there, it was when, it's just such a change in the culture. And I think, Meglin's always said that it was a mirror on society or a funhouse mirror.
Hmm.
Well, it's more than that. I think it's actually what uh, the reading base out there wants to read. Or I don't know how they would ever do their studies, but it's like there just isn't a it it is all these superhero movies and things. It's the tie-in to the cultural tie-in. That it's just
Yeah.
it isn't what it used to be, and so they know they could never sell an issue with really some obscure movie that deserves the attention,
Hmm.
but they must just say, oh no, we're not going to go there. We're gonna do the Flash instead, or whatever it
Right.
is.
Right.
It's
Well, the
just a
current would
sad
be the
it's a
Batman would be the current one.
yeah
If they were doing new ones, they
it's a
would have a
sad
Batman
it's a
spoof.
sad commentary.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a real sad commentary on where we are, and unfortunately it's a mirror of where we're at, and maybe the entire existence of Mad right now is a mirror of where we're at.
Yeah. Which is very interesting. I've thought about that myself. It would be interesting to see if they start incorporating, because they have had, like, you would tell me better because you actually do the indexing. Then they have a couple, like, two pagers here and there in the last year or two that were brand new, besides just the fold in and the cover.
um
I thought Tom Richmond did like a two pager or something, and it was Batman
yeah,
related.
so that was a
Yeah,
Batman actually
yeah.
in the last issue, I believe, before this last one that came out. There was no, it wasn't it was in the Batman issue, excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah, it was I think it was just as a continuation of that
Now,
Batman theme or whatever it was. But
do you,
then the other one, there was a tribute to Nick Meglin.
oh, that's right. That's right.
So and I think there was something about Frank Jacobs when he
Hmm.
passed. So they usually would honor those types of things.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but in something like that, and maybe I should just ask Tom Richmond directly. Do they approach someone like Tom saying, "Hey, we'd like a new piece in this issue," or do they have to contribute something they think this might work for Mad and send it in, and Susie says thumbs up, thumbs down, or you're not aware of how they work?
I'm not aware. It seems like Tom is a natural choice for anything having to do with Batman.
Yeah.
you know, but they might have approached Sam on doing the Nick Meglin uh, tribute
Hmm.
for that great artwork that he did for that. And then
Hmm.
of course they got a lot of people that contribute text, for their tributes to Meglin on. That was a year and a half ago or so.
Something like that. Yeah.
But no, I assume that they reach out more than I have no way of verifying that, but I think that maybe Susie reaches out.
Okay. Well, I hope she starts reaching out a little bit more. I
Yeah.
mean, well, it also makes me wonder how, when they do a new cover, and I'll use this as an excuse to show the latest issue, to show people that, yes, I subscribe. Shame.
Yeah.
But the new issue has a brand new cover, which is actually quite nice.
Uh-huh.
And who is it? Steckley that does it?
Yep.
Yeah, Ed Steckley, who actually used to draw for Correct, but so did a lot of other people. But I need to find out. It's like, are these people? I guess they're approached, and they just kind of go, "Oh, for this cover, let's get Richard Williams," or "Oh, for this cover, let's get so and so," or Tom Richmond or whatever. And it's like um,
Yeah.
Mark Fredrickson or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Mark was just such the go-to person for so long that I don't think they really reached out beyond Mark during his long phase there.
Yeah.
They just didn't have to.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that makes your site very helpful. Could have sworn Steckley had done a cover before. He has not.
Oh,
This is his first Mad cover. It's like, wow.
yeah.
I mean, he's
He
done
actually
pieces for
hadn't.
Mad.
Yeah, he actually hadn't done that much for Mad in the whole scheme of things. In fact, I can't remember. He did do a little bit toward the end of the New York years, or
I think he
not.
did. Yeah, yeah. And then the beginning of the LA years, Hollywood years, whatever, and then or
Mhm.
Burbank years, whatever, and then it just stopped. And then he's back on this one, and it's like I didn't know who the artist was until I got the issue because it's hard to see his signature,
Yeah.
when you get the little
Yeah.
thing here. And of course, they always put up. This is a question about it. They always put up like some sort of sample issue that's not the real cover, using some old artwork and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And then I guess, is that frustrating for you and trying to find out what the real thing is as early as possible, or are you just kind of taking the stride? Okay, issue 25's cover will come out
I
eventually, and
I take it in stride pretty much. I get a kick out of people thinking that that's the issue cover that's
yeah,
coming, and I've had to correct some people over the years and said, no, that's not going to be the one. That's a placeholder.
yeah,
But no, no, I'm not frustrated anymore by anything with the covers. They do eventually come. I'm not quite as anal as I used to be about these things.
yeah,
There's just not as much to do.
yeah.
I yeah, I haven't invested as much time in new stuff, obviously, because there just isn't as much to generate. So
Yeah.
I don't want to get into some of your other questions that might be coming, but we can talk
Yeah.
about how the site, what the future for the site is
Yeah.
looking like.
Well, just in relation to the covers, and you don't have to do this. This is just
Yeah.
kind of a semi-serious suggestion. It's like you should
Mhm.
start a page that has the alternate cover that was the placeholder.
Oh,
Because I've gotten into discussions, i.e., arguments, with a couple people that have said, "Well, where do you find that alternate Godzilla cover?" And I go, "You don't. I mean, you could download the image off of your print and print it out if you want to, but there is no issue with that on there. The one that came out is the one that came out, just
right,
like this cover. Yeah, the placeholder was originally the cover of Mad 184, which was a pet themed cover by Bob Jones.
right.
See, I have all that stuff in my memory. Anything from the
Yeah,
70s, I have it all, and
yeah,
before. It's like I can't remember what's in Mad 22, from 2 issues ago or whatever.
sure, sure.
But anything from Mad 1 to 300, it's I don't need your website.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see the one they were planning to use as a placeholder, and then what they ended up using. You don't have to do it. Makes you more obsessive. It's like, now I have to do it, Mark said.
Yeah.
um let's see. And so you mentioned it briefly, and we'll go there. So you said the first issue you ever saw was the Godfather one. Is that the one that came out in 72, the
Hmm.
yellow cover and everything
Yep.
like that?
Yep.
And what was the circumstances again?
I think I was about 7 years old. I'm
Uh-huh.
trying to guess. Wasn't a regular reader at that point. I think a babysitter brought it along.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's basically it. That's my famous story of being exposed to early Mad.
Now, did you just start buying immediately after that at the next issue, or did it take a while?
I think it took a while, probably at least a couple of years.
Oh, okay.
9, 10, 11, somewhere in there, 2 to 4 years. I'm
Okay.
guessing.
So you
Um,
probably started around the same time I did then,
yeah,
I
and I had
guess.
a friend of the family who had a Don Martin, com- completely Don Martin, one of the early big
Oh, yeah.
books,
Hmm.
and that that was probably the big entry point.
Hmm.
And I think that was a big entry point for a lot of young people, young
Yeah.
guys anyway.
Yeah.
Don Martin just sucked you right into Mad.
Yep. Now, for me, it was Don Martin. It wasn't that book because it was the Mad Super Special 14 with the Don Martin posters,
Hmm.
and it was my sister. Strangely enough, thinking back, if I strain my brain, like the cover of now I'm forgetting the numbers. I think it's Mad 162, where Alfred's on the beach and then the wave comes and
Hmm.
washes him away,
Yep.
um, and leaves the sandcastle. I think that seems like I saw that on the stand at the time when I was like 6, but it didn't resonate with me. I probably flipped it, and saw black and white, and nothing happened. But the Super Special 14, my sister pointed it out at a grocery store, And she goes, "Look at this crazy art." And I looked at it, and then the posters in there were in color and everything.
Yeah.
And I went to my mom, "Can I have this?" And my mom did. So
Yeah.
good for her. And then I bring it home. My dad says, "I read Mad when I was a kid," and
Yeah.
it's like I didn't believe him. I said, "Yeah, you're making it up," because my dad would sometimes mess with me as a kid. Not too often. Usually he's pretty honest, but I thought he was making it up.
Yeah.
And then he went one step further and said, "And it was a comic book. It wasn't a magazine." And it's like, then I really had doubts about what he
So
was talking.
he did know what he was talking about.
Yeah, but I didn't know that yet.
Yeah.
And so then the next special that came out actually had one of those nostalgic Mad reprints.
Hmm.
And I go, "Oh my God, is this what you're talking about?" Yeah, that's the way Mad used to look. It was in color and it had comic strips, and it was like, oh wow,
Mind blown.
yeah. And it's like, I didn't think my dad's not like a nerd, but he's like a little more, you know, straight, I guess. But he has a great sense of humor. He's still around with us too. But it's like I didn't think in the early '70s. It's like this is too hip for my dad.
Yeah.
you know, you know, he couldn't have possibly read stuff like this. And then I read some of those early Kurtzman things, and I'm like, wow, that's really out there, some of that stuff. And it's
Yeah.
like, this is what my dad read. And
Yeah.
I even told Dick DeBartolo this one. It's like my dad read it all through the comics, and then it switched to the magazine. He bought the first one, didn't like it, and he never bought one again until
Huh.
I started buying it. He just thought that the magazine lost a lot of its
Yeah.
when it
No,
became bigger and black and white and uploaded with other articles,
yeah.
like the little,
What a shock to the system. If you had been
yeah.
a follower of the comic book, that would have been a big deal. I think it's a
Yeah.
big deal now just going to
Yeah.
reprints.
Now, granted, when it turned into a magazine, my dad was getting out of high school, so he was 18 by
Mm,
that point. So it was probably about the time a normal person, not like us, would generally stop reading Mad and
yeah,
go on to other things.
right.
But he just thought 25 cents, black and white, it's not as funny, and I could see his point. In issue 24, the original one, is not the best of those early Kurtzman issues. I tend to like 28, actually, Kurtzman's
Hmm.
final issue. I think that's
Hmm.
like where he kind of found his footing, and then he
Yeah,
left.
yeah, yeah.
But
But my folks were never interested in the magazine. But they didn't keep me from buying it either. They were very kind that way. Look in retrospect, because I hear so many horror stories about
yeah,
collections getting thrown out or whatever, whether by mothers,
yeah,
or so they were good that way. Oh, he's got an interest,
yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah,
But they would even in the early days, if they were traveling around, like visiting somebody in Seattle, and they happened to go to a bookstore or something, and they ran across an issue, they'd get it for me, and bring it back as a surprise or a birthday gift or something. And
mhm,
but I can never remember them looking through and paging through one issue. It just wasn't something they were interested in or
hmm,
didn't get. They were so normal.
yeah.
you
Well,
know
I mean, like I said, that's what I thought of my parents as a kid too.
uh,
Normal is the word, but
uh,
my dad would look through it, in the '70s, especially if they did a parody, like I mentioned, like Death Wish or something, a more adult movie. He'd kind of see what they do about it. And he thought that the issues that were coming out in the '70s and '80s, when I was at home and he was seeing them and could read them, um generally were okay. And he liked them actually better than that first Kurtzman magazine issue. But it's like by that point in the '70s, it's been established, it's all in its groove, and you got the regular usual gang of idiots, the classic ones. And Feldstein's been there for 20 years, so
right.
so. But and then fortunately, my parents, seemingly like yours, they never cared what I read, just as long as I didn't get in trouble as a cause of it. So I mean, I was
Right.
reading, you know, so I started Mad in 74. I was reading Lampoon by 76. So it's
Mhm.
like, and
Yeah.
other people was like, oh, the only person that ever gave me grief was my mom's mom, my grandmother.
Uh,
And, it's because she took a look at Lampoon one day and she saw a naked breast and she's like, oh
uh,
my God,
yeah.
you can't give this to our child.
Yeah.
So I went to my mom about it and she goes, don't worry, I'll buy it for you.
Yeah. I never, I was aware of Lampoon, but it, I, I'm not sure why I didn't jump into that and start collecting that too. It really seems like I just got this focus, and I cannot say why it didn't expand into other things, but maybe I always knew I was going to be doing a website someday.
So you never even read Cracked or Sick or
Never
Crazy
did.
much?
Never
Not
did.
even once, just as a casual reader?
No.
Interesting. Wow.
No.
Because it always seems like I forgot. Have you seen my Crack books at all?
I'm aware of them.
Okay.
I've not paged through them.
Okay. Well, I interviewed a lot of people for that, and
Mhm.
a lot of it was crossover because a lot of people worked for Mad
Sure.
and for Cracked and vice versa. But Dan Klaus, who later did Eight Ball and other things, and did movies, he did some of his early stuff for Cracked in the 1980s, but he gave me the choice comments. I put all the choice comments on the back cover as reviews that basically were negative bashing Cracked comments. And his comment basically was, Cracked, nobody liked Cracked. You'd read Cracked and go, ugh, and then you say, I'm never gonna read this shit again. And then 6 weeks later, after the new issue of Mad had been out and you're waiting for that new issue of Mad, you say, okay, I'll buy Cracked again. And that's how people bought Cracked.
Yeah.
And I totally identified with that because at the time in the mid 70s, I didn't start buying Cracked or Crazy until 75 or 76.
Hmm.
And I did like Crazy a lot, but Cracked, other than Severin's artwork, left me kind of cold.
Hmm.
In doing the Cracked books, there's a lot of people who tell me I always preferred Cracked over Mad. I always thought Mad was too sophisticated and Cracked was just funny. And I go,
Yeah.
okay, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I have I believe it or not, have a respect for it, even though I don't know an awful lot about it. Basically, because of people like yourself and who you've talked to, or somebody in some commentary on Facebook will make some sort of comment about you know how it is worthy of respect.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I know that it means something to a lot of people out there.
yeah. Now, the inevitable question always has been, and you know about this because I think you've been in some of the Facebook feeds. It's like, Mark or Doug, why don't you do a Cracked website similar to the Mad one? Now, I did do a complete index in the backs of the two Cracked books I did,
Uh-huh.
but it's not a online version and it's not searchable like yours is and everything else like that.
Cross-referenced and all that.
Yeah, the closest you can do is if you buy the ebook version of mine, you can search, which I do when people say, I'm looking for this article. I don't know if it appeared in Mad or Cracked or blah, blah. You know, if I don't know it just by knowing it, you
Yeah.
know, number one, if they say Mad and I kind of think it might be a Mad thing, I go to your website first. Then if it's not, I check my own Crack books on my ebook version because I can
Mhm.
search it by a name. But if it's
Yep.
something really obscure, then I'm like, I don't know. And it could be Crazy, it could be Sick. Crazy, I know pretty well. Sick, I have all the issues of Sick, but I don't know it, you know, because I got those a lot later when I always tell people when, how did you get all the Crack magazines and everything? It was in the Wild West days of eBay when, like in the late 90s when nobody knew what they were doing or what anything was worth.
Right.
And they just put a stack of magazines and say, old humor magazines, $10. And I
Right.
go, okay, mine, and that's how I filled out my collections because I never found these things in stores,
Sure.
these older issues.
Yeah.
So, and which leads me to believe to ask, do you have a complete collection of Mad
Mhm.
still based
Yeah.
on this? Okay. Now, when did you switch from just buying current issues off the stand to where I got to get all the old ones too?
Oh, I'm going to say early 80s,
Okay.
probably. Um, and it still was maybe very, very late 70s, early 80s when it still was possible to get on a bus and go down to Portland bookstores and find back issues. It was amazing that, the Mad was all over the place, and they were cheap.
Yeah.
Cheap. You get them for a dime or 50 cents sometimes for an issue. And I filled out much of my collection, and then once in a while a comic con type thing would come to Portland, a convention of some kind, and that's where I picked up some of my comics, most of my comics. I think I got number one for $300 at one time.
Okay.
It's not in the greatest condition, but it is.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what that was. I didn't know if that was a print or if that was the actual one.
No, that's the actual one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my other.
What else you had? Oh, number 5. Yeah.
Yeah, love that one. Oh, like that. Anyway.
What's that one? Is that other one 11?
This is just a Wolverton.
Yes, and that's my favorite of the early Mad comic book covers.
I love when they stopped losing when they started to lose that border humor in the juggler vein, and they went with much more experimental things. Or
yeah, like exactly.
Life thing.
But I always wonder. I always wonder when they did that, if that affected sales. Granted, that has a Wolverton cover, so that's an instant attraction. But if you're like looking for the standard yellow logo and everything, like Mad was pretty established for 10 issues, and suddenly you see 11 looking completely different. Oh. And then, the same thing with like 16 and 19 of the original series. It's like, did people, I always wonder if there's exact sales figures and you watch it go like this,
I never thought about that, but if you look back in the 50s in the magazine or comic book buying public. Oh, I'm sorry, my cat wants to see me.
That's okay. I usually have my dogs, but they're not in here.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It just was a whole different way of approaching a newsstand. People probably really stood in front and oh, is that a Mad?
Yeah.
And then they get excited about it. And
yeah,
I think sales were really heavy after the Superman issue.
Yeah, number 4. Yeah.
And so I just think that the reading public out there just probably like us today with our surfing habits, they surf those newsstands.
Right.
They probably glommed on to anything that looked interesting.
Yeah. Because I've asked my dad about that. I said, was it hard to find Mad? He goes, no, I got all the issues. And I go, really? Okay. All right. And he said, yeah, he lived in Bakersfield, California, and he'd buy his comics at a liquor store. So, which is unheard of nowadays, and I go, did they tend to carry everything? And he said, yeah, they pretty much carried everything. And then I asked him if he collected other stuff. Well, he did when he was younger, but see, Mad started when he was 14. And I said, did you collect anything besides Mad, after Mad started? And he said, occasional Tales from the Crypt or other EC, but most of the stuff didn't interest him, like Superman anymore. And he said he read or flipped through an issue of Panic and he didn't like it, so he never bought Panic either. So I have a soft spot in my heart for Panic, but I think it's because I love Bill Elder art so much too, that I wish there was like a compilation. I know they did those little compilation books of all the Davis stuff, Wood stuff, and Elder stuff. I wish they would do a Panic one or revise the Elder one that had the Panic stuff in the back, but I'm sure there's like copyright issues or something to do with that.
Of course, you could always try to find the Cochran reprints.
Yeah, well, I have those. I have like too many versions. Well, as you probably do yourself, too many versions of Panic and Mad, the original comic books. I even have. I always tell people it's like I can't go anywhere without Mad because I have all 23 issues on here. So, because when they started selling them, I think the enticement was issue 1 was 99 cents, and then they did the others for $1.99, and just slowly over time I just added a few, and then I eventually got all 23 issues. And I go, they're all here.
Right.
I could be lost on a desert island and I could be reading. It's insane.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, yeah, one other thing, and you'd mentioned this, but this is kind of like going back to not any having any insights, and you're seeing these. So they always do these kind of mad specials, every so often. You mentioned one earlier, and this is the latest one. They seem to come out like once or twice a year, but unfortunately they're like reissues of older ones.
Yeah, and this is the first one after the stocking stuffer that has been duplicated. I mean, that one you just held up, I think came out in 2014.
Yeah,
And I think that's the trend now. We're going to see all those repeated.
which is unfortunate because I
Yeah.
always think, and I mentioned this on other podcasts, is like the one I would like to see, especially since they did those smallish versions of the comic books, is to have a collection like this of late 50s, early 60s Wally Wood. They've never done a Wally Wood edition, and
Mm.
how hard would that be, Susie? It's like it's
Yeah.
already scanned. You just put it all together, and you could use Doug's site that way.
Right. I think I had to verify this, but I don't think Susie has anything to do with those
These
grocery store
types,
books.
yeah, that's one thing I don't know either. In fact, I got in a discussion with Bill Morrison about this because
Yeah.
he was like saying, "Who the heck is Meredith?" And Meredith distributes these things now, but I think they were distributing before they even moved to Burbank. But it was just, you know, because if you should know this, it's like some of these came out under the Mad Books imprint. Some
Mhm.
of them came out under, like, this one is Meredith Specials,
And there was a
and
Time Life
yeah,
imprint.
and so there's like little different imprints, and it's like I
Yeah.
don't know how that whole licensing thing works, and it's really kind of a bizarre thing.
Yeah, I think when they first came out, they were, of course, they were for Kara and Kadu publications. You know, they were they were actually put together by the staff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it even still says it in here. I mean,
Yeah,
granted, it's
exactly.
reprinted. It says edited by John Takara in here, and even in uh, uh, the Mad Magazine staff, listed on here, it'll say
Yeah,
2022 on here, but it doesn't say any mention of Susie or anybody else.
yeah,
It's the old New York staff, you know,
right.
which is
So
interesting.
I think that now they're just a property that gets recycled.
Yeah.
Like so many other things. It's going to be the John Lennon issue of the month or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's kind of sad that there's no like creativity. I guess there is, I'll give some credit. I mean, I guess it's good on the regular issues. At least they're trying to theme them, and this is a pets
Uh-huh.
issue.
Yeah.
Some of their themes are kind of, but like
They're
they did.
they're all themes. They're all themes we've seen before, though, in one form or
Right.
another for
Yeah.
years, in the form of specials.
Yeah. Yeah. So what can we do? Well, that's why I was suggesting like the Wally Wood one, because he gained traction over the
Mhm.
years. I mean, granted, when people talk about Wally Wood art, the last thing they talk about is his late 50s, early 60s Mad Magazine material. They're always talking about his EC material or his material for Wits End or for DC or for Marvel and Daredevil or anything else but that Mad material. But it just seems like, for me, that would be the total cash in, since Wally Wood has this kind of
Yeah.
reverence, and there's enough material you could do a book. Like
Yeah.
another book that would be fun to do, but it would be like a 5-page book, because it's the best of Frazetta and Mad, or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well, I just wonder, you know, so evident that it's all dollars and cents.
Yeah.
What kind of return are they going to get out of it?
Yeah.
That's what it's all been reduced to.
Yeah.
And I think I might have talked to Frank Jacobs before he passed about his book that came out. His hardbound book,
Hmm.
and it didn't sell as well as any of the artists' books.
Hmm.
And that's a sad commentary too. He had always told me that, oh yeah, it's an artist magazine anyway. It's the
Yeah.
writers create the ideas. It's really is an artist magazine.
Yeah.
But no, so I think that it may just not be the time for a Wally Wood, even though he deserves it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just see it because I see other publishers publishing books about Wally Wood. And of course,
Yeah.
because it's an extra licensing fee to get Mad material into it, they rarely, if ever, reprint any of that material in those compilations. And also because they tend to focus on science fiction or something, they would probably license out from Gaines Estate to get weird science material, for
Mhm.
example, versus Mad material. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
It's just a thought because I'm always thinking, like you said, they've done that. There's too many trips to the well. They've done the 90s before. They've done Pets before. They've done Batman before. They've done Superman before. It's like, why not
Yeah.
come up a few different themes or cover? Or I mean, I would even like, this is a stretch, and probably only you and I would buy it. Like a best of George Woodbridge. It's like he never got his own
Yep.
compilation, and there's some
Yep.
fantastic stuff he
Hmm.
did. Um,
Oh,
even
even Bob Clark.
yeah, Bob Clark,
Gosh, just so much stuff.
and I don't even think Jack Davis got a proper book. There's books about Jack Davis
Yeah.
that
Not so
do
much a Mad book. You're right.
yeah, that do contain some Mad material, but it kind of goes through his whole career and record album
Yeah.
covers and everything else. So you
Right.
know, so it'd be interesting. And my friend Mort Todd, who used to edit Cracked, we at least reissued in a book form, so it is available. The Jack Davis material he did for Cracked. Strangely enough, he did just enough to fit like a normal special, about 52 pages. The unfortunate thing is, if you've ever seen the material Jack Davis did for Cracked, artwork is impeccable, perfect like ever. The writing stinks. Like
No,
out of 52 pages, probably about 3 are like as good as quality as a Mad article, and everything else is like,
I wonder if he would have agreed with you.
oh, I'm sure he would. I mean, in my crack book, I did interview Jack Davis. This is the one time I did talk to him on the phone briefly, and just to get his input about working for Cracked. And he basically said he hated it, but he needed to make a living for that little brief period of time because um, what had happened is they all left Mad. You know the story. They all went to Trump, and
Hmm.
then they did Humbug, and then after Humbug, it was still a couple of years away before Kurtzman did Help, and the next thing available was Cracked. And so a lot of the Humbug people, everybody went over to Cracked briefly,
Hmm.
and Davis stayed the longest. But Elder did like manage to do one cover and a couple articles. Jaffe did a couple articles. Even Angelo Torres did a couple articles, even though he wasn't at Humbug or anything like that. But he was probably hurting after EC too,
Yeah.
and so all these guys, and Davis stayed the longest, so he did about 4 covers, and he did like all those articles for about a 2-year period, and then things changed for him. He started getting the RCA record album deals and all the other stuff,
Yeah.
so and movie posters and everything
Yeah.
else. But yeah, there's a brief time. So he hated doing it, but he could do it, and it paid the bills until he got back to, everything else.
Right. Right. You got to do what you got to do. It's
So it's
help
unfortunate
pay the
about Crack.
bills.
That's where it was kind of a dumping ground. Is like people. But the funny thing is, when I did my Crack books, both Jaffe and Therese didn't remember working for Cracked, and they both told me I didn't work for Cracked. And then
Oh.
and I emailed them articles they did, and they both said, I guess I did. But it was, I can understand it. If you have like a 50-year career
Oh yeah.
and you worked for Crack for like 2 or 3 issues, it's just a little blip on the radar.
Right.
It's like you're not going to remember it, and it's like, but it's just funny to that your mind can trick you that I never worked for them,
Yeah.
and they were
What a,
strict, they were stern about it. They said, I don't have anything to say. I didn't work for it,
yeah.
until I sent it to them, and then they go, oh yeah. You know? So yeah, the one other funny thing is, John Ficarra did like 4 articles for Cracked before he moved over to Mad.
Hmm.
And he was one person I wanted to interview, and he would not interview with me. And I think it's because he didn't want people knowing that he worked for Cracked, which
Uh-huh.
is silly, because I wasn't going to disparage him for working for Cracked. I just thought it was kind of amusing. It's like Mad's longest serving editor actually started at Cracked,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so did a lot of other people. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway. Um, where are we going here? So I guess I was going to ask your opinions of these other magazines, but you never saw them. It's kind of
Yeah, you'd probably,
interesting
you'd
that
probably, you'd
there was
probably be,
nothing that grabbed you that you say, "Ooh, I like the Severin cover. I think I'll pick this
uh,
up," or something like that.
I don't know why I didn't go there or go into other uh, funny mediums out there. I just,
Did you collect anything else? I mean, do you collect other comics or other magazines or
no,
anything
I
else?
really don't. And in fact,
Wow.
you'd be surprised. I don't have a massive EC knowledge in general.
Yeah.
You know,
And
I have some of the Russ Cochran reprints, and that's about the extent of my ownership of any of
yeah.
the EC comics. You know,
Yeah, I was
but
going to mention that. Yeah, it's like I do have an EC knowledge, and of course now they're reprinting, so you can get on the bandwagon here. You can buy them all. Is they're putting out these,
Mhm.
reprinting these in paperback versions. They're nice and slim, and they're
Mm.
only $20 each, which is
No,
very economical compared to, and they're in full color too. So it's like
huh.
you get it's the newer
Who's putting
coloring
those out?
that's this is Dark Horse,
Okay.
and this is volume 2 of Tales from the Crypt. So each one would have 5 volumes, except for, I mean, I think some of the later ones, I think, only have 4 or 1. But anyway,
Yeah.
you know, um, I just decided to buy them because back in the 80s and 90s, I'd buy like $50 worth of comics, and now I don't buy anything new except for Mad and Looney Tunes, and that's it. So I figured, I can afford a book because I think they're putting out one of these every month. So,
Huh.
and it's at Barnes and Noble. But then other things, I'm just showing you. I grabbed stuff. I said, "Oh, here's current stuff." If you're a real EC nut like I am, but they do talk about Mad on
Mm.
occasion. The
Mhm.
probably final issue of Squatront came out, and you can find this from Fantagraphics. Also, it's number 14, and I recommend, if you care, going through Bud Plant, because you can get a signed version that has John
Ah.
Vincent, Grant Geisman, and Roger Hill. So you probably know Grant
Okay.
Geisman.
Oh,
So, and they do have in this particular issue, I mean, it's kind of smallish, but they have the cover rough for the original Mad 22,
hmm.
and it's an article about Kurtzman in here, and then there's a real lot of stuff. This is interesting that was in here, just since we're talking about Davis, is that there's an article about a Coca-Cola brochure that Jack Davis drew all these little spot illustrations before he ever worked for Mad.
Huh.
But they have kind of a Mad look to them,
Yeah, they do.
and it's really interesting. So
Huh.
anyway, recommended, just
Yeah.
showing these things if you're, but I don't know how obsessive you get. I mean, I do get obsessive because of certain artists and stuff like that. And
I think maybe it's, I can't say age because we're probably similar in age, but I've lost some of the obsession. I know
oh yeah,
I haven't gone after a lot of the things. It probably takes all my energy just to keep the website going over the years, and
yeah,
that's where my head was at.
yeah.
So,
I've lost the obsession only from the standpoint of, like, and it might be this pandemic too, just comic books in general, and it's like, well, I guess I'm finally growing up, but there's nothing out there. I will, there's a local comic book store in there in town, and I go in there and look around, and I'm not a superhero fan. I used to be way back when, but I got out of that when they started getting all dark and gritty, and so I kind of look at things and I go, wow, I guess I save a lot of money not buying any of this stuff. So,
yeah.
and but it's funny, is like how it used to be like a religious experience. I had to go to the comic store
Mhm.
every Wednesday, and I had to pick a stack of comics, and I
Yeah.
had everything pulled in the saver and all that stuff. And it's like, I keep thinking, what's wrong with me? I don't do this anymore. And then I realize it's not necessarily all me, it's the industry changed.
Yes. Yeah,
And
it's the times. It's so many ways. It's the times and how the industry has changed in response to the times, perhaps. And it's
because I keep telling myself, would I buy this stuff if it was available? And I go, well, I don't know if I would buy, like, if this wouldn't happen. If, let's say, comic books reverted the way it was way back in like the 50s and 60s, where you had TV show tie-in comic books and romance comics and a ton of humor comics besides just Archie, and you have all the Harveys and all the other funny animal comics and everything like that. Would I buy all those? And I go, well, then you have the opposite effect. There's like so many, I'd
Mhm.
have to like pick and choose
Yeah,
what to do. I think now, since I'm showed you things like this, which are really nice to have. I probably wouldn't buy these because I already have it in some form already.
yeah,
But the fact that I'm not getting anything else, and these are very smartly produced, okay, I'll get them. I'm not saying
yeah,
you have to. I'm just, it's just that
yeah.
that's
I
where
guess
my
my
collecting attitude is. It's like, if I'm going to buy anything, I buy something that kind of reflects to what I'm interested
yeah,
in rather than explore something new.
right,
So
right. But yeah, just trying to own all the different Mad books over the years. That really became a pursuit, and now that's on break, it seems. So
yeah, and that's a funny thing too. Is like, um, if they're so intent on reprints right now, uh, why not reprint books that stay out there? Instead of like these Mad Spoofs of the '90s. That's a special, so it has a shelf life. I think it says on here. Let me see. Um, display until May 20th. So
yeah,
then it goes away. But I mean, when I was a kid, you go to the bookstore and there's like 30 pocketbooks of Mad at any given
yeah,
time,
yeah,
probably at almost any bookstore
right,
anywhere. And there's just too many to select from. So you just say, oh, well, I got to get the Don Martin one.
yeah, yeah,
And oh, well, this one's kind of funny. Mad Book of Magic by Al Jaffe. Let's get that one. It's like,
hmm
and I didn't get the reprint ones as much later on, because I said, well, I already have them in the magazine. Then later, when they
yeah,
stopped printing them, I went back and got them, and I go, wow, some of these are hard to get.
yeah. That's true.
I don't know if you buying all the paperbacks as they came out, or was that like an
No, that
after the
was an
fact?
afterthought, an
Yeah,
after the fact thing, and finding some very cheap, on eBay, but then others, like you say, there's outrageously hard to get. Just weren't published. They just didn't circulate many copies.
yeah.
So,
One thing I found out going through every issue, Matt, also is not every paperback was advertised in the magazine.
right.
And most of them were in the early days, but in the latter days, when early '90s, there's a couple they skipped, a couple of the reprint
Yeah.
paperbacks, and definitely oversized stuff and the more obscure stuff. They never
Mhm.
bothered to, which seems odd to me. You'd think, it's like, just put a little mention
Yeah.
in here.
I wonder if they just were seeing the sales were diminishing to a point that we're just going to get out of pocketbooks,
Yeah,
paperbacks. I
yeah,
think is what the last one was, what, 92 or something.
yeah, 92 or 3 or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, or
So
they probably cut the cord in '92, and I think a few came out in '93.
yeah,
And if you listen, I keep mentioning the Dick DeBartolo one just because that was one of my reasons of talking to him. Besides just to talk to him, I wanted to ask someone that worked at Mad how the whole paperback thing worked,
yeah,
because every book that I've read about Mad history really just talks about the magazine itself. And on that podcast, Dick, answers the questions really well. So all that material is going to be in my book because, I wanted to know, I'm always kind of curious about
yeah,
all those tie-in things just as much as the
yeah.
regular things. So,
That was a really good interview. I enjoyed that.
well, thank you.
Yeah,
And granted, I didn't ask him too much about, say, like Mad TV or the cartoon show because I knew he wasn't involved there. But
right.
I'm always kind of curious about how some of these projects, they kind of get greenlit and they go on for years, and then other ones, like the Mad cartoon special is made in the '70s. Kind of, I know the reason why it stopped, but it's like things like that, just kind of don't go anywhere. And you know, probably the most obscure thing I found was that to Patty Freeling, the people who did Pink Panther were considering a Captain Klutz cartoon show, and I've seen storyboard art on it and proposals and everything. It's like, what happened to this? That would have been interesting,
Yeah. Hmm.
especially since that's not really a Mad thing, but they're calling it a Mad thing. Yeah, so I don't know how much the line blurred back in those days on those paperbacks and Mad,
Hmm.
because like Dick said, it was a separate thing. It was a separate thing, and they just slapped the Mad name on it. So
Right. Right.
so
Hmm.
um just kind of curious on your website as far as how your computer knowledge came about. Did you go to school to learn how to program and make a website and be a webmaster, or did you just kind of figure it out on your own, just fumbling
I
around?
kind of figured it out on my own. I was actually in college studying in Bozeman, Montana, MSU. I have a media and theater arts degree,
Oh, okay.
and but I also like computers. I kind of wish in retrospect I'd studied computers, but but no, I was able to just learn some basic HTML language coding, not coding so much, but just the coding is completely different. But
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, but putting together web pages, it just was more of a self-taught thing.
Hmm. Okay. And you found that you liked it, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did enjoy it, and
Okay.
you know, I just enjoyed the internet, and still do. But at the time, it was just so interesting to me
Yeah.
that you could be your own self-publisher in a way. And it's what it's become for me is just I can I've if you've looked around my site, you'll notice that I don't really share an opinion so much. It's not
Hmm.
it's pretty, it's almost Wikipedia like in its presentation. It's just
Hmm.
it is what it is. And I'm not saying somebody is bad or good, or I'm not making any comparisons, and that's
Right.
really by design.
Yeah.
um I just thought it's not really the place.
Yeah.
Could go
Which
there,
is one
but
of the
that's
reasons I like
what
it. I
Facebook
mean,
what
yeah,
Facebook is for.
yeah, yeah. But it's one of the reasons I like it, because you just present the information, and it's like it's up to you to say, oh, or the reader to say, oh, I don't really care for Peter Cooper's artwork or
Yeah.
something like that. It's not up
or
to you to, it's like,
or
and you give equal weight to everybody, even if they only
yeah,
had one appearance back in
yeah,
1950 or 1958 or something. Yeah.
yeah. I think that's been an argument too. So, well, can you really call that one contributor one of the usual gang of idiots?
Yeah.
And in my mode of thinking, they are. Everybody who was actually paid to be in the pages, I consider them an idiot. No, they're not a Don Martin or a Dick DiBartolo, but
Right.
they still had their time in the mad limelight. So
Right. And sometimes, like, say, writer Chevy Chase and
mhm.
the artist for that Mission Impossible piece, who only did one other piece, I found out, John Cullen Murphy, who's
Yep.
not an artist to be sneezed at. It's like, well, it did what it did. It's kind of funny that Chevy Chase only got one piece in the
Yeah.
magazine, but he went on to bigger and better things with
Yep.
Lampoon and everything else. So,
Yep.
and then John Cullen Murphy, I guess the situation is there. It's like, in a certain respect, I guess he was too similar to like Jack Rickard at the time, so they didn't need two artists like
Yeah, there
that.
was more. Yeah.
Because I thought that was by John Rickard originally, when because I didn't always read credits, and then
Right.
when I started reading credits more, I said, "Oh, that's not that's not him at all."
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um,
But I just has been fun kind of giving, you know, it can be very obscure, and there aren't going to be a lot of average typical readers out there, fans,
mhm,
really wanting to get into that granularity of who did what,
yeah,
a one contributor here and there. So
yeah,
it just is, I still kind of like the process of going
yeah,
through and listing something like that.
yeah. But I am glad you listed everybody, because especially for my purposes, it was very useful, but also just because Oh, I didn't know that guy did something in Mad, because a lot of people use Mad as a stepping stone to something else,
Hmm.
or they did a one-off at Mad and it didn't really work out for whatever reason, and
Right.
you go, oh.
Yeah.
But they can still say, hey, I was in Mad. So um now you don't put your opinions on the page, and you don't have to go on the negative side. So who are your favorite artists or writers at Mad?
Oh, well, it would probably go back to my, the childhood growing up in it. I think you've said it often, and so have a lot of other people. Your favorite time with the magazine is when you grew up reading it,
Mhm.
and so I probably would go with a Larry Siegel and Don Martin, of course, and Dick DeBartolo.
Mhm.
Any of those guys from that era are favorites. I really do like George Woodbridge an awful lot.
Mhm.
Um, Jack Davis, I just go down the list of all those '70s folks. And as far as newer people, I like Desmond Devlin. He kind of straddled that line to the much newer issues, but um, I think Tom has his place in the newer Mad.
Mhm.
Um, but they're no, I think that one thing that happened with it modernizing is you didn't quite see the same stable of artists and writers
Right.
continuing a streak.
Mhm.
So that may be another reason why I go back to the old days, because you just were constantly hit with their work
Yeah.
for a
And
minute.
I asked Dick about that. I said, what do you why do you think that is like Mad used to be like, if you were at Mad, that was either like an end all, that's where you wanted to go, and that's where you, or if you started to do something else, like in his case he did Match Game, and to tell the
Mhm,
truth,
mhm.
he's stuck with Mad, and he said basically the Mad, had, you know cachet, but nowadays
Yeah,
it seems like somebody will work at Mad a few years or a few issues, and then they'll go on and work at Nickelodeon, or they'll work,
yeah,
they'll work at DreamWorks or something, or start
right,
publishing children's books, and they say bye bye Mad, and they never come
yeah,
back, and it's like,
yeah. Well, the family was lost pretty much. It was looked at as a big family. It was Gaines's family, and it kind of disappeared, especially after he passed. And can be argued that before he passed, but um, it just wasn't. It probably just got more expensive to live as an artist and writer. You can't make bank on Mad alone.
right.
You know.
And yeah, perhaps you could back in the 60s and 70s. So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
Or you were talking about people like Stan Hart and Larry Siegel being able to go off to California, and then they would still contribute things to
Yeah.
Mad occasionally, because there was still this sense of family. Like I you know, they would still do it.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. You don't hear much about that happening nowadays.
Yeah. So that's one thing I'm adding in my book, which your site doesn't touch on, but it shouldn't, is just where these people go,
Yeah,
when they leave Mad,
yeah,
and why, and so I tried to, in most cases, to follow the careers of everyone. Some people passed away young, and you go, oh, okay. I mean, I found some interesting things following the careers as best I could. Some people I couldn't find at all. Once they did their Mad thing, they were done. There's like nothing. But there's a couple of weird endings for some people's lives. Some of them went on to do other things, and I try to list that as best as possible,
mhm.
and everything like that. So you'll see it at the time when it comes out, hopefully in the next year or two. But yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's it's a big cumbersome project, as probably your website was,
Yeah.
because um to get it to this state, how many years did it take? I mean, to get it to like where it's like this, it wasn't overnight,
Oh,
right?
no, no. I don't know if you've seen on my page where I kind of have it's my about page.
Yeah, I looked at it actually right before we
Yeah,
talked today, just
down
to
at
kind
the
of,
down at the bottom, I kind of go through a rough evolution of things.
yeah.
that really is pretty true. I haven't really dated when those things all
Yeah,
took.
that's why I was kind of curious.
Yeah.
Approximately, did it take like 10 years to do the
Well, I think
basic? Yeah.
there was a lot of overlap, and it's, you know, I would, like when I was adding the contents, you
Hmm.
know, it, I roughly, I remember in the earliest days of doing that, I wasn't concerned about mentioning that there were two spy versus spies in an issue.
Hmm.
Sometimes I didn't put things in order.
Yeah.
I didn't credit who wrote the article.
Yeah.
I put a title up there, and then that evolved. I said, well, that's crappy looking,
Yeah. Yeah.
or, so it's just a lot of learning, and things that weren't obvious at the time became obvious what to do.
Hmm.
And as far as the the starting to put the name of the artists and writers up, I kind of needed to do that before I could move on to the next thing, which was making the big list.
Right.
You kind of have to, everything had a step, and it took years and years of overlap, and I can't do that before until I do this. And
Yeah.
you know
Fortunately for Mad, for the most part, they credited most of their artists and writers over the years. There's a few issues that are kind of iffy,
yeah.
like especially during the Kurtzman Feldstein transition. Although Geisman kind of found out from Feldstein who did what on those last transitionary issues,
Mhm.
but it's not actually in the magazine, so that
Yeah.
can be frustrating. If and I think there are a couple instances where you really don't know who an artist is because it's like they never gave him credit, you know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. And
So
much less the writer.
yeah.
But there was, what was his name, von Bernowitz,
Yeah.
who did the checklist.
Yeah.
um, Big source of help on that.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
I've never seen those. I've heard about them. I mean, people have shown me, but I've never flipped through them.
Yeah.
I don't have them or
No,
anything.
they're
Yeah.
great.
Mhm.
He was brought on to kind of, not brought on. I think he offered to do it, and Mad said, "Yeah, go for it."
Mhm.
And they promoted him in the contents pages for the 3 volumes that he did.
Right.
And so he had their attention to be able to get things right.
Yeah.
So I really used that. I can thank Mike Slobbaugh for even making me aware. Do you know who Mike is?
Yeah. I think he has that website. Well, you can explain, but yeah,
Yeah,
I know of him. Yeah.
it's the Mad Lists
Yeah, that one.
website,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he uh, he made me aware of that von Bernowitz lists were even out there. I just probably skimmed over it in the contents over the
Yeah.
years, but I never knew how valuable it could be. And before I could get my own,
Yeah.
Mike was helping feed me information when I needed it.
Oh, okay. Because yeah, see, I know I've known about them for years, but I've never been able to find them cheaply. Yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah, it's
they're
tough to
usually
find.
hundreds of dollars nowadays, and it's like I don't know, maybe I should just take the plunge. I have everything else and just get them, but
Yeah. Well, now you can just use my site.
yeah, that's true.
I've
That's
just
true, but
I've just transferred it all over.
yeah,
It's all very much in
yeah,
keeping with those books.
yeah. One thing I did like on your side, and I'll tell you, if you could do more, but there may not be much more. You did scan all the issues of Mad Freaks and Mad Panic.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's many other Mad. I guess there's that Journal of Madness. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's a possibility.
that would be a tough one. I don't think John would give me permission to do that.
Oh, okay. So you have to get
Yeah,
permission
and
then. Okay.
I know John actually. Do you collect that, or do you have those issues?
I have those issues. I think I'm missing maybe one or two of them.
What,
Maybe I might
get
have them all.
get yourself, go unbury the third issue, and you'll see an article having to do with me and my legal battles,
Oh, okay. All right. That'll
because
be
that was
interesting.
back in
Not with him, right? That's with Matt.
no,
Okay.
this was the original thing we started talking about with them telling me to
Okay.
cool my jets on putting covers up.
Okay.
It's I think it was the third one. I hope I'm telling you right, but it's like the last article. Um,
Yeah.
it was,
Well, I
but
mean, for my research for my book, I'm not only going through the Mad issues. I am going through every major interview source and book that I know about. I mean, and there's stuff coming out. Here's another thing to hold up. This just came out, which I assisted with, but I'm going to start going through this. A book about John Severin, which should have been published years ago.
Yeah.
And it's about his whole career and everything. But I assisted on that with John Cook, and he sent me this. I was very happy. So I recommend it. But, that's what I'm going through now. I've gone through comics, journals, interviews, and stuff like that. And, unfortunately or fortunately, that's just the way it is when you do books like this. I can't interview William Gaines, but a lot of good people have over the years, and so I'm going to take some of those good quotes, giving credit, but I have to, because he's not here to interview anymore. And but that's why I also try to do my own interviews, so at least I'm doing new material. I'm not just cribbing things from everywhere else.
Right.
But yeah, anything that's really obscure or stuff like that. I did go through all the Mad Panics thanks to your website, and went through there's a few interviews on there, not too much on that series, but there's a few. And Journal of Madness, I don't think I've gone through yet, but I have the issues in a stack over here that I still need to go through. And like I said, I went through Comics Journal and stuff like that. So.
I think John wants to eventually republish some of the pages in his own, in another form. Maybe he'll do exclusively interviews or something.
Yeah.
Who knows what, but he it's not to a point where he's willing to just let it go.
Yeah, and I can see his point. Yeah, and it actually, it's kind of funny. Back in the day, I never read the Mad Panic. The only time I ever saw it was on your website. I knew about it. For some reason, I never bothered with it.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was kind of like lists of things. There wasn't much content, I noticed. So if they gave you any sort of pushback, which obviously they didn't, because you got to put them up there.
I got permission on that one.
Yeah. So, but if they gave you any pushback, they really shouldn't have, just because there's not much in there that would be useful now. It's like it was useful then, but now it's kind of like antiquated information. Mad Freaks USA, though, I subscribed to that at the time, and I was so sad to see it go after 6 issues. I was like, and
I got a letter published in that one, and one of the issues,
I saw that. Yeah,
it's 15 years old.
But I didn't know that at the time. Yeah, it's like it was only looking through them more recently that I go, hey, it's Doug Gilford. So there's proof he was a Mad fan back then. So, couple more questions. Over the years, whom have you met, or at least talked to? Or is that?
Well, so many people, and it probably has to do with working with in the earliest phase of Alan Bernstein's When We Went Mad documentary, which is still in production after over a decade.
It's like my book. Yeah.
And I, to this day, I'm still saying he will put a documentary out. I have all the hope in the world and faith that he will, but he's gone through some convoluted processes, and it will see the light of day. But getting all those interviews, met a lot of people. I don't know if I could list them all.
Okay, I'd forgotten you were involved with that production as well. So yeah, because I wasn't even thinking about that, and you could have brought it up already, but that's okay.
No, I tend to, people kind of, put me in as a co-producer on that movie, and it really may have started out that way, but we really have diverged over the years, and we're still very friendly, and I still am his #1 cheerleader.
So who came up with the idea of it? I mean, everybody
it's totally his.
Oh, okay. So
it's totally his.
And he approached you? Okay. Well,
I sort of said, hey, I'll help you out if you need some help. And I know some guys.
Yeah.
Or I can help you to get into the current Mad staff door, in New York. But he had laid the groundwork way before.
Oh, okay.
And he was doing some interviews with California contingents. Had Larry Siegel. Kogan.
I know he got Harry North, because I saw a clip from that.
And you got Frank Jacobs too, and
Yeah.
Frank, I can say I helped do that, but just because of who I knew
Mhm,
down there, and but those are people living in California. I kind of flew down and helped out with the production a little bit, and then that
mhm.
that got more involved when we went to New York and started getting serious on that one. So
Yeah.
we set up in Mort Drucker's living room,
Mhm.
and another cracked guy's living room. Oh my goodness, having brain fade, little tired today.
That's okay.
Yeah, uh, he, I think he left and actually didn't he become some sort of an editor?
That correct?
I thought so, maybe, or a big time writer anyway.
Well, the later editors at Cracked, well, Lou Silverstone. And,
Silverstone,
okay.
Silverstone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah, he
got to
was.
interview Silverstone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was the Cracked editor during the '90s. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I knew that he was connected with Crack, but
yeah,
heck of a nice guy.
yeah. I interviewed him for my Cracked book as well. So
Yeah.
and
So I got to meet him, and those are the two guys we actually had to go out to their houses
oh,
in Long Island
oh, okay.
because they were video,
Hmm,
and the rest of the guys we set up on the fourth floor.
mhm,
I think there was a fourth floor of the Society of Illustrators,
mm,
and people came to us that for those interviews.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, and so many of them have passed now.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well, I am hoping, but I'm still plugging. I mean, the history on my Mad book, because I didn't want to do it. I figured, people like yourself cover a lot of stuff. There's been other Mad books, but Ben Omart, the guy who publishes Fair Manor Media, said, "I want you to do a Mad book," and he's been bugging me for years. And then when Mad went reprint, I thought, well, this is like perfect time. I knew that the documentary was being done, and I want to go on record that I don't want to step on anyone's toes one way or the other. It's like I'm just trying to do my own thing. And
mhm.
I'm hoping, though, in kind of a weird way, I'm hoping that whichever comes first, it's like I'm hoping that both will be valid and have good information. That
Mhm.
it's like,
Yeah,
I don't want to be accused that, oh, I waited for the documentary to come out if it comes out
yeah.
first, just so I could grab those interviews. I don't know if those interviews would be helpful for what I'm doing,
Well,
at
I
this
think
point.
that I
Yeah.
think Allen's is really a a much more I won't say typical, but it's going to go over the entire history. Uh,
Right.
to a certain degree with the interviews, it's going to be um, the basically I think aimed at people who don't know a lot about the magazine. So it's going to have to kind of go there.
Yeah.
It's going to be appreciated by those who do know, but
Yeah.
probably aimed more toward those who don't.
Yeah.
No,
And
it's
mine's going the opposite way because I'm assuming that everybody's like you have everything, so why are you doing a Mad history book? Well,
yeah,
it's like I'm going to try to knock your socks off with my book with information that you don't
yeah.
you
There you
know
go.
you know and so far I've succeeded with that with every book I've ever done, but I generally try to tackle something that hasn't been done before.
So it's
And so
more niche,
yeah.
right?
So when I do my Mad book, the one thing is I'm going to cover all the same ground from 1950 to 1995, roughly, that's been in the other books. But I'm going to try to take a new slant on it, I guess, if I can say it that way, instead of just repeating the same old tired stories.
Hmm.
Or if there's conflicts in the story, I always like to present that because sometimes you read Al Feldstein said this, and then you find out Gaines said this, what's
Right.
correct, or Kurtzman said this, what's correct. I'm going to present all those views instead of just putting my view out there and saying, this is what happened. I wasn't there, so I'm going to just say what these guys said.
Right.
You know, Fortunately, I always love the William Gaines interview. Like this is a Comics Journal one. You may have seen it, I'm sure. It's like where he had seen the Kurtzman interview that was in Comics Journal a few issues before, and he corrects everything that Kurtzman says. He says, well, he didn't have jaundice when this happened because he was doing, it's like, he had it when issue 5 came out. That's why we did issue 5, and we did that Publisher of the Month, that page that got us in trouble. He didn't have jaundice before issue 1 because that wouldn't have made sense, and so,
right.
But I'm still gonna put Kurtzman's quote saying I had it at page 1, but then cover it with Gaines's. That's the way I tend to write.
That'll be entertaining reading it that way.
So there's like conversational about it. See how people's Rashomon memories are about things. Which happens.
Traditional was the word I was looking for Alan's. Not typical traditional.
Well, I just hope it's entertaining, and I know you said you're not a big EC fan necessarily, but there's like this great EC documentary that had all the usual suspects being interviews, that was made back in the 90s when everybody was still around. Feldstein and Davis and Gaines and everybody was interviewed in it. It was actually well done. I would like it to at least be of that level where it's like, it's a little bit talking headish, but it's like they show good graphics and they kind of just tell the story of how the horror comics came to be and what caused their demise, that type of thing. And what went on, and why Mad came out as the winner, by luck, kind of basically. Over the years, did you ever try to contribute anything to Mad?
No, I never.
That's interesting too.
No,
because I used to, but
anyway. I saw that you had done. Oh, what is it? For Freaky. I forget which issue it was though. Wasn't it the last issue?
One of the issues. Yeah, I did. I'm good friends with Andrew Goldfarb. I've known him since I was a kid. He got 3 or 4 pieces in Mad, which you have on your site, and I think he got a couple pieces in Australian Mad, which I can show briefly since I had that too. For those who don't know, Mad still is published in Australia. This is the latest Mad there. This is Mad Classics, so they still publish it there, but that's it. But apparently,
is it all new material?
No, it's mainly reprints, but then they sometimes slip in a new one, because Goldfarb said he got a couple newer pieces in there, and like, really? But if you re-listen, go in my podcasts, because I'm starting to transcribe. Kit Lively said way back when that he and Scott Nickel used to contribute new material regularly to Australian and German Mad that never appeared in the United States, and I'm like, go figure. There's your next project, to put all the material that should have been an American Man. Anyway, so
no, I've never contributed that way. I figure I've contributed a lot of data though. and the
so in the indirect route,
I've had a lot of direct contact with especially the New York staff and Susie now about how helpful it was. So there's that.
I noticed she said recently, and this is a little Facebook string too, is like, there's only 2 of us now, Susie and I forgot the name of the other person. I have to look them up. So there's no time to update the website, and you volunteered. You said, I'll do it. So I don't know if anything came of it, but I think it would be neat, and you kind of tie it all together. But
they really are shorthanded. If somebody has to, on the current staff, also do the website, they hire that third body to do that.
Exactly, because it's like that. It's frustrating, when they're in reprint, and then like the latest issues, like number 18 or something listed there. It's like, come on, how hard is it to put the latest issue? Even I update my website quicker than that.
In this day and age, you need to have an updated website.
I think you and I do them a better service. I mean, every time a new issue comes out, I always post it, new issue in the mail today, and then you get the inevitable responses. But here's the inevitable responses you get, and this is like, oh, is it still being published?
I love that one.
The other one is $5.99. That's not cheap. And it's like, it is. Yeah, it is.
5.99 is the longest price point
Yeah,
that there ever was.
yeah. And also, it's cheaper than virtually any other magazine on stands. Most magazines are about $10 these days.
Is
So
that right? I did not know
yeah,
that.
yeah. So I don't know if you don't look at newsstands, but you used to see in the old days Warren magazines, even if you
Hmm.
didn't read them, like Creepy and Eerie and
Yep.
Vampirella, those type of things, Famous Monsters. Anyway, there's this guy now named Rich Sala who publishes kind of knockoffs on them. There's new material. One was called The Creeps, but he had to change the name because it sounded too much like creepy. So
Uh,
now it's called Shudder, and he does this other one called Vampirus Carmilla, which is like Vampirella, but we're not telling. Anyway, those are on the stands, and they are $5.95, so they're 4 cents cheaper than Mad. But it's the only thing I can see on the newsstand that's cheaper than Mad,
uh,
that's published on a regular basis. And for people who say that's not cheap, it's like, well, then you haven't bought a magazine. And then people always say, you know, I always love it when people also write, well, I can't buy it because it's all reprints. When did you last, and then when did you last buy it? Oh, the last time I bought it was 40 cents. Well, okay, that was 50 years ago. So you have 50 years ago of reprinted material
yeah,
that you have not seen. So
yeah, yeah. People don't really think it through. I sometimes wonder the people on the Facebook groups, especially,
yeah,
why are they even there? And most of the time they're, not most, but there are a lot of people who just sneak in and start bashing it.
right,
And that sort of sticks to my craw.
yeah. Now I can understand, like, if it's somebody like you or I who's been collecting it for years, and you're just kind of disgusted that it's all in reprints, and you have
Mhm.
it all and you've read it all. I get it. I mean,
Yeah,
I've been tempted at times to stop reading it, but I think, well, maybe someday it'll come back. And it's not that big of an expense to get these new issues
right.
because it only comes out 6 times a year, and you can get a killer subscription deal.
Yeah.
So it's like, eh, you know, it's kind of like dropping money in the street, and occasionally you can have a laugh at the cover or something. But
And then the other thing is, maybe they will actually change.
yeah,
Change one way, change back a little
I
bit.
think it will. That's my prediction. I don't
So,
know if it'll be full new
support them.
material. Yeah, I
Support
don't think
them.
it'll be full new material, but I think that they'll start incorporating more new material than they are.
Hmm.
Um, and as far as newsstands go, well, they tend to kind of act like it's more of a comic book versus a magazine now. So it's kind of in the comic book
Yeah,
ghetto,
yeah.
comic store ghetto.
But they're
And
always they're always going to be more of a subscription
yeah,
piece now, I think, right?
yeah. I don't know if you remember this, is that there was this big push in the latter Takara days. They're trying to push for more subscriptions, and there's
Mhm.
like a questionnaire that was
Yeah.
sent out or something. I think it was if I remember, if memory serves, there was a page in Random Issues of Mad. There's like two versions published that issue, and you talk about it on the website, that some had the questionnaire and some didn't. And if you had the one with the questionnaire, you get some sort of a little free gift. Well, unknowingly, I got the one with the questionnaire, but I remember
Yeah.
all the questions were like, um, you know, do you subscribe to Mad? And I put no. What would it take to get you to subscribe to Mad? Not much, because I like buying it off the stands. I really
Mhm.
did. I
I
didn't
did
care.
too.
I didn't
I,
care if
I,
it's $5.99 a month. It was just fun to like go in the store and like, there it is, and you flip through it and get a good
I,
copy and you leave.
I didn't I didn't subscribe until very, very late in the game because I
Yeah,
wanted to make sure I got the most pristine copy
that was me
possible.
too. That
You
was
know,
me too.
that was it.
Yeah, because
Especially
there's
for
been
scanning.
a couple times they've been crunched up a little bit in the mailbox and they're
Yeah,
going, it's like, you know,
I was thinking they could do a whole piece about, just a funny little video about a typical mad obsessive, you know, making sure there wasn't any moisture on the belt where they scan it over the sensor.
oh yeah.
All that
Well,
kind of, just how crazy you can get.
that would be a whole article. Yeah, I remember I was obsessive to make sure, because checkers in the old days didn't care. that they would scan it and just throw it in the bag with the milk
Yeah,
and all the other wet goods, so you have this
yeah,
soggy magazine when you pull it out of the bag. And I used to tell my mom, if she was with me when we bought it, when they scan it, have them hand it to me,
yeah,
and then I'd pack it with cereal or something that was
yeah.
dry,
Right. Or
or
even
just
up as
hold on to it.
just a few years ago, I would be going grocery shopping with my wife and said,
Mhm.
"I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get the magazine first." You know, I'd go out and do that, and then go back and help her with the shopping.
Right,
You
right.
know, that's
Eh, that's
get
funny.
creative ways to preserve your magazine.
We're obsessed.
Mhm.
And then when I'm sure you went through this phase too. I'm sure you used to fold in your fold-ins, and then somewhere you say, "What am
Mhm.
I doing?" and you stop doing it, right?
Oh
Or
yeah,
do you?
yeah. And
Yeah,
then you figure out a way to just kind of not fold it, but you can kind of read down through it to figure it
yeah.
out.
The way I do it is I just put a piece of paper on this half, and then
Uh-huh.
I move it over and on this half, and I go,
Yeah,
"Okay, that's what it's supposed to try to
yeah.
say," and figure out the letters.
Or
You
sometimes I'll scan the back page and then do it
yeah,
electronically.
yeah. Well, that's the easy way now, but
Yeah,
back in the day when I, decided not to fold them anymore, it's like, yeah.
yeah.
um, but I was so bad, I had to rebuy the first year of Mads because that I originally bought, because I used to clip them out because it said a Mad Mini
Oh
poster, and so
man.
I'd clip them out and put them on the wall.
Oh boy.
Silly me.
Yeah,
So I had a year of coverless Mads, and then I went back and rebought them. So,
yeah.
but
That,
fortunately that they weren't rarer than hen's teeth back then. Imagine if I did that with the comic book ones or something like
oh boy. Yeah.
that. But anyway, well, any other future plans for the site other than what you might have discussed, or any other plans anyway, or outside the
Well,
website?
as far as the site goes, I'm always looking for what I can do to continue my own personal interest in keeping it going. Not that I'm going to end it anytime soon, because there are a lot of people out there who are very invested in it,
Mhm.
and I will occasionally, ask for help for on the, you know, for and not because I couldn't afford to pay the hosting fees with my service provider, because I have for years and years, but it's kind of the principle of the thing. If people want to support it, I'll let them, and so I'll put the word out like every 3 years,
Yeah.
and they have shown over and over and over again that yes, please keep it going. But
Gotcha.
there still have been points there where I've gotten a little tired of it.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
so.
didn't you take it down once and then there was a little bit of an
I
outcry? I
think
thought you did.
I think it can be counted, and one fellow can back me up on this, who seems to record these types of things. I think I've actually had it down 4 times
Oh, wow.
for less than a week,
Uh-huh.
and it was I can't really tell you where my head was at that point, but it probably was related to being a little burned out on
Yeah.
it, and then the emails and the hoopla that it stirs to get that thing back up there is just okay. This is
Yeah.
beyond me now, and it really would be stupid to take this down. And I've gone completely the other direction, I think, now. And it as long as there isn't a World War III, it'll be around, I guess.
Right. I guess you have to figure out how to do a legacy thing if something happens then. I know
Yeah.
you were talking about selling your Mad collection after the fact. I don't know if you got any takers at this point, but you
Well,
know.
I went about that whole thing completely the wrong way, I think. And
Oh, okay.
I still am thinking about doing that
Yeah.
someday. I'm not
Yeah.
really. I I think what I've kind of come down to is maybe it belongs to the library of some
Yeah.
kind. You
There's
know,
certain universities that will take them and archive them and use
yeah,
them for
something
reference
like
and stuff
that.
like that.
So I'm
Um,
thinking about that. It's not about. I just really don't like the idea of trying to sell it.
right.
You
Yeah.
know,
I'm kind of the same way about my collection. I mean, I could, but then what?
you know,
Um, but it's not for me to figure out right now.
yeah,
But the other thing is, I just thought you took it down once, but
Yeah.
but I remember when that happened, and I thought you were just kind of testing the waters to see if anybody actually really read this thing.
Well, it ended up, it wasn't my goal to do that, but I
Yeah,
did find out that people were
yeah,
looking at it and really cared about it. But
yeah,
as far as what to what to do to continue my own interest in it,
yeah,
I I've been doing some little things with I, it's been totally nuts, and I don't regret it, but the marginals,
yeah. I was going to ask about that.
I don't know what I was thinking. That's been a real time sucker. And I just can't do it all the time. So it's probably going to be a 5 year long project from start to finish.
Yeah.
Um, but other things too. I very recently, like this last week, somebody mentioned, boy, it sure would be great to have a site that showed all the bonus material and the specials.
Mm,
And I thought, oh, well, I could probably do that.
yeah.
You know,
Especially since they never reprint that stuff.
exactly,
The last
exactly. I
time may
don't,
have been the ridiculously expensive Mad, but it's so many
yeah,
were made after that too.
right.
So yeah,
So I think I'm going to explore that and maybe
yeah,
incorporate those into the website on those special pages.
yeah.
And one nice thing, there's no timeline for a hobby.
Yeah.
So you can just keep on keeping on. But
Right.
one thing I was meaning to bring it up just to get your take on it. You're familiar with the different websites out there that many of them are probably offshore,
Hmm.
outside of America, that are reprinting entire magazines.
Hmm. Yep.
And I brought this up to Susie, and I brought it up to my friend, the lawyer on the staff of
And
DC,
the lawyer.
in legal,
Yeah.
the legal guy.
Yeah.
And I said, aren't you, because I'm protective of man. I've reached a point where I
Yeah.
don't want it to be harmed. I
Yeah.
don't want it to. I want. As odd as it sounds, and I'm a big copyright violator when it comes to just doing the covers and back covers and
Mm.
all this stuff. I never have really gotten into to any great degree, the interiors,
Right.
on my site anyway.
Yeah.
And so the thought that these guys are out there doing this really does kind of bother me. And then
Hmm.
I recently saw that the Internet Archive is now doing the same thing in one form or another.
Right.
You're familiar with that
Yeah. Hmm.
site? And I think that
And you do
makes,
see a lot of things that are questionably public domain. They're like
yeah.
they're in copyright.
Let
Yeah.
me let me. I don't know if you'll. Okay, you've disabled the sharing. Okay, that's okay.
Okay. Okay.
But there's an Internet archive where the guys put up 100 issues,
Hmm.
the first 100.
Yeah.
And when I speak to Susie about it, she says, "Well, I'll talk to them." And no, I think their hands are tied. I
Yeah.
think DC's staff is so limited with what they can do. They're probably fighting other battles.
Right. Yeah.
And so what it's coming around to is, I would like to be the guy who's
Yeah.
allowed to do that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and without getting into legal trouble. I mean, they know how to contact me, and
Yeah.
that's probably why I never could do that.
Yeah.
You know? But I should be that guy.
And to take it one step further, if you could actually get where it would actually be a paying gig, I mean, you've seen the various Mad archives that have come out over the years. We mentioned the Russ Cochran ones, then DC did their own versions of them. So they've reprinted Mad 1 to 24 ad nauseum.
Right.
But there's been many people who say, why can't they do volume 5, issue 25 to 28, and finish the
Mhm.
Kurtzman run? Well, I say go even one step further. Why not reprint in hardcover book going up to, say, issue 100 or something like that, at the
Yep.
very least,
Yep.
just to have a nice archival edition. I that's the odd thing about it being in reprint. They're not taking full advantage of the reprint capabilities that they have at their disposal. It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
weird. you know.
But I wonder that, if it really is a group of people sitting around the boardroom table at DC saying, no, we can't do that, or that's a great idea, but it just
Yeah,
is going to cost too much, and the return on investment, blah blah blah
yeah,
blah blah. It's something to wish for, but I just don't
yeah.
think that
It
these
just
guys.
it just seems like the cost wouldn't be that significant since
Mhm,
it's reprint material, and
yeah,
I don't know if they pay royalties on that stuff anymore. If they do, it's got to be pennies anyway. So
right,
it's like, but I don't know. I'm not there. I don't know.
yeah,
But that's always a commonly asked request is why can't they reprint 25 to 28 in
yeah,
a book? And then they'll say, why can't Dark Horse do it? Or why can't Russ Cochran, well, when he was alive, do it? And it's like, because Mad is a separate entity from William N. Gaines' agent. And,
mhm,
all of that, it's like everybody thinks it's all under one happy roof, and it's not,
right,
so.
right. But
And current Mad is different than Mad 1 to 23, so,
yes, exactly.
yeah, so,
And no, but I think that given the opportunity, that would be an interesting thing to do, would be to reprint stuff. I wonder, if my reprinting of the front covers and the back covers didn't have a bearing on sales or
mhm.
lack of sales, right? Maybe it did. Maybe I actually killed Matt.
I don't
No,
think so.
I don't think
If
so.
anything, I think you encouraged it because you always
Yeah,
have the little Amazon thing. If you like this issue, buy it here, and
yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
so,
But what would actually printing the contents do? Would that kill the magazine since it's
well, if
all reprint?
anything, and I see it up on your shelf, I think you have the Totally Mad or something, the box, the DVD
Yep,
ROM up there.
yep.
Yeah. If anything, it would have killed the sales for that, but that's so antiquated now. It's like, at least 100 issues old. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
see, it stopped in 97.
yeah. And then they did a DVD ROM version that I think goes to
Oh, right.
2002 or something.
Yeah,
So you
which
got
was
yeah,
really crappy quality though.
yeah,
Oh man.
yeah,
At least the CD-ROMs, that was pretty passable quality.
yeah. But
Uh,
those eventually will probably stop working. I know some of the functions on the other ones don't work now that used
mm,
to on my old computer, and I'm like,
yeah,
most of it's the audio files and things like that.
yeah.
But
And if you go to any of these offshore sites that are reprinting the MADs, they're
mhm.
using the
Oh, they've
totally
got
mad
to. Yeah,
CDs.
I mean, it's easy just to take it off of
Yeah.
there. I'm
So
not saying it's right. I'm just saying I know that's what they got to be doing.
yeah.
It's like,
So I don't know if I haven't really been promoting it too much, but if you go to my site and look up the finger cover,
mhm,
166,
yeah,
you'll see a a a what a magazine reprint looks like, because I've done it with one issue,
hmm,
and just basically using what those guys put out there
yeah,
from the Totally Mad CD-ROM. So
yeah,
in that same quality, I haven't really changed anything. I'm just using what they put out there, and put these big disclaimers up saying, hey, this is not something that I produced. I got this off of their site. You should do something about it, DC.
yeah. Now this would take a massive undertaking, and nobody's going to do this, but I feel that the entire run of Mad should be completely rescanned because I think the quality is not the highest.
Hmm.
And so, like when going through the original issues, when I did, just like looking through 'em, it's like I can pour over their artwork the same way. It's like it's so crystal clear. But on the ones on the DVD ROM and the CD ROM
Yeah,
and anything I've seen, you blow it up enough, it starts pixelating and fuzzing out. And it's
right.
like, I don't know what they scanned it, mine maybe 1,000 DPI, which was probably state of the art when they did it, but
Uh-huh.
now they should do it like at 2,500 or more, or
Yeah,
5,000 or more, or
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I think you have to kind of know what the end result is going to be there, or the end product is going to be for web use,
Hmm,
for basic
hmm,
appreciation that way.
yeah,
Um, because it's passable even today,
hmm,
um, if you're just getting a regular internet
yeah.
connection.
for me, it's just poring over the artwork.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
and but then I say, "Oh, I don't have to worry about it. I can look at the original issues," which I
Yeah,
do.
exactly.
Yeah. So,
Um,
but when I get these new issues that have the reprints, especially like when you're looking at like Drucker art, which has a very thin line, a lot of times it's a little bit fuzzy because
yeah.
it's only so good, and you're like,
Yeah.
it could be so much better if they rescanned it. But,
So given the opportunity, that's what I would do with my remaining years with Mad
yeah,
Cover Site is really
yeah,
really do make it more of a more than the Mad Cover Site.
right. And then, here's one suggestion. I'm not saying you're passing anytime soon. I believe you're younger than me. I'm 55, so it's like,
I'll be 57.
oh, so you're a little older. Okay, but we're roughly the same age. The there was this guy named Don Markstein who did the Tunopedia,
Mm-hmm.
and somewhere along the line he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And Tunopedia continued on, and then it disappeared for a while, and then somebody else brought it back, I think currently it's gone again, and it's still a valuable resource, even though it hasn't been updated in about 10, 15 years, whatever,
Right.
since he passed. So that would be an example of what to do with a legacy, besides just your collection, is what to do with the site so that it continues on, even if it's not updated anymore after your passing.
Well, I'll tell you what I've done in that regard. I have 5 friends
Yeah.
who I have given my passwords to my server
Hmm.
and given them directions
Oh,
to take it over.
very good.
That's my legacy. It's
Okay.
between the 5 of them, somebody's going to have the power to at least pay the bills,
Okay.
and they can raise money through
So
GoFundMe or whatever and pretty easily and pay for it. And so I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon.
very good.
Um,
Okay. So even if Mad does,
the
the
site's
site
not going
will
to go away.
Doug Gilford's site
Yeah.
will not go.
Even if I'm alive but I'm mentally incapacitated, it should still go on without me.
It keeps going.
Yeah.
So I guess usually at this point in the podcast, I usually say, it's like, well, is there anything to promote? But we've been promoting the website the whole time. But
Yeah.
do you do any personal appearances or anything like that? Or do you just kind of do this behind the scenes?
It's pretty much behind the scenes. You, I am going to be attending. I don't know if you heard about this. Angelo Torres is maybe 90 or just turning 90.
Hmm.
And they're going to have a retrospective gallery exhibition at the Society of Illustrators.
Hmm.
That has not been promoted on their website yet, but I'm saying so now. And it's going to be in New York, Society of Illustrators. I'll just say mid-June at this point, and I will be in attendance for that. I've already bought my plane ticket and got the hotel, and wife and I are going.
Very good.
So
Okay.
there's
I
my
don't know.
appearance.
I don't know if I'm going because I think I might. Well, it might be in May. There is going to be a comic convention that I've been invited to in Salem because we're both Oregonians.
Hmm.
In the month of May, May 21st, I believe. It's a one-day thing,
Yeah.
and I've been invited there as a special guest because of all my various books, not just my cracked ones or mad ones or anything else, and it's everything else I do. So I'm honored. But I don't know if I'm making any trips back east. I should, that sounds good. If it was
Yeah.
like a year from now, it'd probably be easier for me because
Yeah.
I still wasn't planning to travel much this year, even though pandemic's kind of lightening up finally.
Yeah.
But
Well,
uh,
I'm going back for Angelo, but I've also got friends there and their
okay.
staff, and I go over to the Giz Wiz's place and Dick's place.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I knew what you meant.
I just see a bunch of people that I know back there and shoot the shit for a few hours. So
Okay, that's cool. Well, tell him hi when you go there, and he'll say, "Who?"
yeah.
The guy that interviewed you on the podcast. Okay. Let's see. So, I guess if there's nothing else going on, that kind of wraps everything up. If you have any lasting thoughts to say about Mad, we hope it continues. But
Yeah. That's the biggest thing. I hope it can return to at least doing new material. It's going to take a generation. This current generation just doesn't seem to do an awful lot of reading anyway, and all that. So I wish that Mad would, DC would realize that going after that generation doesn't need to be their main focus. I mean, go for who knows it,
Yeah.
and appeal to that. That'd be what my biggest advice is. Change who you're focusing in on.
Okay. And then if somebody wants to get in contact with you, obviously the website, but any other way, if they have questions or want to contribute something?
Well, there's a Facebook variation of my very site. It's, if you go to Facebook and search out madcoversite.com, there's, I throw stuff up there, and I'll pass that along to other Mad groups. I've got a Twitter feed, also Mad Cover Site. It might be under Doug Gilford, I forget now. But I put some of the same stuff there, so that there are ways to get a hold of me that way too.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, thank you, Doug Gilford, for being on the Fun Ideas podcast today. It was a blast. And if something new and fresh comes out from Mad, we'll probably have you back on to talk about it.
Great.
All right.
Nice talking to you, Mark.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So that's that. Oops. No. Hold on.